Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Delta Tango Mike. Today is January 26th of Start Now 2020. And you missed a great meetup and art competition, art battle at the Microsoft store at Lenox Square Mall here in Atlanta, Georgia. Don't worry, we have more coming up, so check the Art is King meetup page. It is at meetup.com, and then search Art is King because I forget the exact link. And anyways, we had a good time today, and during the art battles, I like to talk about the business of art. And since it is hashtag Start Now 2020, I stay focused on the things that artists need to be able to step into right now to help build their career, build the art success that they want to see in their lives. And so today I talked about the triple constraint. I don't know how to say it correctly, but that's the word, the way I'm going to say it. The triple constraint is this theory that project management uses. And earlier today when I was talking about it, I forgot where it came from, but I know that I first heard of it through my wife, because she was getting her master's a few years ago, and there was project management involved, and I sat there with her and helped her study. And it was when I saw it, and I was like, wait a minute, that sounds very familiar. So if you ever heard somebody say you can have it cheap, good, or fast, pick two, then you know what the triple constraint is. And the triple constraint is this theory that says that there's whatever project you're working on, this is very, very particular to artists too, even though it has to do with business and project management and so on and so forth, very high-end, higher-level thinking. It is something that artists are faced with all the time. You have a project that you want to work on, or somebody brings to you something that people want you to be involved in. You have a deadline. There is a time constraint on how soon this needs to start happening, how soon it needs to be completed and launched. And then there is the price. And that's the triple constraint. It's about the project scope, the time you have to complete it, and the price of the money that is being spent on it. And as artists, we come across these amazing projects. Everybody has a great idea, and they're all good ideas. I don't knock it. Some ideas need a little bit more cooking than others, but the fact is that those ideas sometimes come with very low to minimal to sometimes non-existent price points. And you've heard me tell few stories in this series, and maybe I said this, I'm sure I did. I think I did in the beginning of this series. I mentioned that there was a TV show being filmed here in Atlanta, and my art was on the walls. And they asked, the producers of this TV show asked me for a waiver to use my artwork in their show. And I was like, great. And when I asked, what's the compensation? They said, oh, we don't pay for that. So, of course, they did not use my artwork, because I must get paid for my art, for the use of my art, for the visuals of my arts. I got to get paid something. And that's the thing, that as artists, we're always confronted with these great opportunities, like, oh, that's great, I would love to see my artwork and such and such. And then when we talk about money, oh, well, we don't have a budget for that. And so we have to keep that in mind, the triple constraint. It has to stay in our back of our mind as we're having discussions with people and hearing about great projects. One of the tools to realize right away whether this is a project that we want to work on or not is, well, what's the budget and when do you need it? As soon as you ask those questions, you need to hear the answers that are going to put you in a position to accept the project scope. What people like to talk about is how amazing this project is going to be, how great is it going to go. There's going to be websites and apps and festivals and businesses and opportunities and so on. And they want to spend hours and hours telling you about this project idea. And I'm all for it, but the first 10 minutes of any conversation, I always say, this is great. Before we keep going further, it sounds like there's going to be this, and this involved. What's the timeline? When do you need this complete? And what's the budget? A lot of times, some people come to you and they're waiting for you to tell them, well, how much do you charge? And that's fine. I've had those situations, and sometimes the question, it comes in this form. How much do you charge? Are you cheap? That's like with the tattoo stuff. Are you cheap? And I always say, no, I'm not cheap. With a straight face, confident on my skills, on my talent, on my business acumen. I think that's the word. I am confident in myself and like, no, I'm not going to fall into that hole of that conversation to make the other person feel like I'm worth all of this, but I'm willing to work for cheap. Or that somehow I can be undervalued for what I'm worth. I I go ahead and say, no, I'm not cheap. And I said, but I'm very good. And you wouldn't be here talking to me if somebody had not said something good about me, which is uh, um, uh, another point that I will make in the next coming days as we're talking about how to build the confidence to negotiate. In any case, this is part of negotiation. This is a part of the discovery when you're talking to a potential client, is that figuring out what's the budget, or they asking you what do you charge, and you have to take certain things into account to know your price, and you got to know who you're talking to, because the price will vary depending on the person and the scope of the work and the time in which they need it. So understand the triple constraint. Understand that it's never going to be an equilateral triangle that all points are the same. You know, the scope matches the time, matches the price, but they have to play well together for you to really feel like that's a project that's worth for you. There is a quote that I saw my wife post the other day. It said, to those without direction, everything looks like an opportunity. And so you have to know who you are. You have to know what your price point is. You have to know how long certain projects take for you to do. You have to know your workflow for these particular projects so that you can have the right amount of time, the right amount of price, and the right amount of work that's going to go into that works well for you. All right. So that's part of negotiation. I did not title it as such, but I will in the description of the video. The triple constraint, I add the definition from Wikipedia on this description of the video. Check me out, Delta Tango Mike. If you have any other questions, please send them my way. I will be going through some of the questions that people leave at the meetup.com page. If you join our Art is King page or group, there's a questions that you have to answer, and some of those answers are questions from you. And so I will go through this year. This is the one of my goals, is to answer as many questions as possible, share as much as possible, so that we can all build the kind of careers that we want. A thriving artist, our life. All right. Delta Tango Mike, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Send me a message. I also you can also send me a message to artistking_ATL, Instagram and Twitter. Artist King is where I'm putting all these videos on YouTube, and you can find me at The Creative Genius on Behance and LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning more about digital art and how to level up your art career, check me out, patreon.com/Delta Tango Mike. Talk to you later. Peace.